love some good music. I love good music. Sorry, I was texting my partner. My flight training partner. Should clarify that. What's up, guys? How's it going, guys? How's it going? Let's get down to business. So I decided to make a video on my thoughts about the whole ATP program now that I've finally finished. And to the best of my knowledge, I have not made a video on that yet. So let's jump into it, guys. Let's jump into it. Okay, so I'm going to start from beginning to end and go through what I thought could have been fixed, what could have been better, what was good, and we're going to call it a day. Okay? So, IFR training. You're going to join ATP. First part, if you start from IFR, like if you already come in with your private, you're going to do IFR training next. And what's going to happen is during your IFR phase, you're going to do, at least when I went through, you're going to do time building. Okay, and you're probably just going to go from like your airport to some cross-country airport to just build time. I believe for your mins, for your check ride. Okay. Quick disclaimer: I think the program has changed a little bit since I went through it. So take what I'm saying with a grain of salt when it comes to specific details on the program, because some of the things in the program have changed. Okay, and I'll try to point them out as we're going through that I know have changed. Okay, so anyways, so after you finish your IFR training, nothing major is going to happen during then. After you finish IFR, though, you're going to go on your crew cross countries. Okay, here's the first issue that I found is crew cross countries. Okay, downside is ATP advertises that during your crew cross country you'll be able to go coast to coast, do coast to coast flights essentially. Say maybe go from Arizona to Florida. The odds of that actually happening are very, very, very slim. Of the people that I know who were able to score that, none of them were flying Cessnas during the crew cross country. So if you want to have a chance of doing crew cross countries and actually going across the country, you're gonna have to do your cross countries in a Seminole. And I'm not too sure if they offer that option in the program anymore. I think that you may just be doing your crew cross countries in the Cessna 172. I could be wrong. But if you are doing your crew cross countries in the 172, do not expect to go coast to coast. Okay? And if you want to go anywhere interesting, you have to bug flight ops daily. Like every day when you call them and check in, say, hey, I want to go someplace interesting. Because if you do not, I can almost guarantee you that they're going to fly you to Mesa Gateway, and you're going to go from Gateway to Tucson, Tucson to Gateway, Gateway to Yuma, Yuma to Gateway, and keep that whole triangle going. And maybe if you get lucky, they might say, hey, take this plane from Mesa Gateway to Yuma and then to CRQ. Okay? Me and my partner, we bugged flight ops. We bugged flight ops. So what happened for me was I was based out of, not based, but I did my training out of Mesa Gateway. So ATP paid for it. They usually will fly you on Southwest. They paid for me to go from they paid me to go from Mesa Gateway to San Diego. Okay, and then from there, it was my responsibility to get myself from San Diego International Airport to Palomar, which is about 40 or 50 miles, I think. And I took an Uber. It costs a lot of money, but you get reimbursed after you're done with the crew cross country. So remember that. Most of your expenses, except for food, you're gonna get reimbursed for, okay? So when me and my partner met up every single day, when we called flight ops, we were like, hey, want to go someplace interesting? Hook us up. So they sent us from like Palomar up into Northern California, and then we kind of loop back down towards the end of our training, okay? So that's how it worked for us. I'm gonna say this, crew cross country is going to be the second most expensive part of your training. Why? Because one, you're going to be buying a lot of food, you're going to be getting a lot of Ubers, and remember that even though ATP pays for your hotel, you still have to slide your card for incidentals. And I believe it needs to be a credit card, and typically your incidentals, I think they're about $300 for us. So that means that you're probably going to want to travel with a credit card that has at least, to be safe, I would do at least a $500, travel with a credit card that has at least a $500 limit on it. That way when they say, hey, we need a card for incidentals, you can just slide your card, and it's no problem. And as long as you don't mess up the room, that money's going to go back to you as soon as you check out. Okay. So crew cross country is definitely going to be a very expensive phase of your training. All right. So after you finish your crew cross country, you're going to come back and you're going to do private multi. That's what I did. You're going to come back and you're going to do private multi. I believe I had about 6 hours according to the syllabus to get the Seminole and to learn the Seminole before I took my check ride. And I think I only used maybe like 4 hours or something. I ended up failing that check ride because I didn't do good on my short field. I made a whole video on that if you guys want to watch it. But it wasn't that bad. I was tired at the end. But you'll come back and you're gonna do your private multi. That's one of the things I believed has changed. I think they dropped the private multi check rides, so you're not gonna be doing that anymore. That's how it went for me. After my private multi, I did my commercial multi. If you can pass your private multi, you can pass your commercial multi. It's essentially the same check ride. And then I went on to my comm single engine, passed that, no problem. This is where things start to get a little fishy on my side. This is where I believe ATP has, this is where I believe you have the potential to get screwed the most. Not necessarily by ATP gunning for you, but just by the way everything works out. So first things first is that, I'm sorry to backtrack, but when you do your crew cross countries, you're likely going to get like a 2-week delay between when you finish your IFR check ride and when they actually send you and partner you up with somebody for your crew cross countries, okay? The same thing is going to be for CFI school, all right? So once you finish once you finish comm single, at least when I did, then it was on to CFI school, okay? So let me explain this to you guys. When you go to CFI school, you're going to be doing your initial CFI in the Seminole. So your initial CFI is going to be an MEI, okay? So for me, my last check ride, the plane that I flew the most was in the 172, okay? Then I had about a 2 or 3 week break between me finishing my check ride and me getting to CFI school, okay? And then we had about a week of CFI school on ground. We weren't actually flying the plane yet. We were doing like ground and sims. And then after that, we flew the 172 for spin endorsements, okay? And then once all that's done, you get about 4 hours in the Seminole to get yourself ready for the check ride. I think that is absolutely ludicrous, because first off, you've lost all proficiency in the Seminole by this time. I promise you that unless you're a genius, you have lost most of your proficiency inside the Seminole. Before I left ATP, not left, but before I had my break between my check ride and CFI school, I felt very comfortable in the Seminole. But once I got to CFI school, I didn't know anything about the Seminole. I had forgotten almost everything about it. And I had lost my touch in the Seminole because I wasn't flying it. Granted, I got it back fairly quickly, but you only have 4 hours to get it back, okay? And in that 4 hours, you're relearning the Seminole systems, you're learning new maneuvers, okay? And you're getting proficient in the right seat. And that, of everything, the hardest thing is going to be getting proficient in the right seat. And I feel like it's kind of a little sketchy that ATP does this, because if you look at their hourly rates, if you need to do retraining or more training in the Seminole, it's $500 an hour, okay? So we get this 4 hours of MEI time to get ourselves ready for our MEI check ride, okay? And let's say that you know you're not ready, but you feel pressured in taking the check ride, so you take it. This is very common at ATP, unfortunately. So you take your check ride and you fail it, all right? Now you're gonna have to pay the retake fee for the check ride. You're going to have to pay for retraining in the Seminole, and it's about $500 an hour. And let's assume you failed something in the flight, all right? So we're saying maybe you failed short field and steep turns, okay? And and your instructor says, hey, okay, we need to go fly for 2 hours, okay? That's $1,000. $1,000 out the window, okay? Plus the retake fee of your check ride. Usually the retake fee is about half of the total cost of the check ride. So when I took my check ride, it cost me $1,000. I'm guessing the retake would have been about $500. If I had failed my MEI check ride, I would have had to pay $500 plus however much time it took to retake, okay? To retake or to retrain, all right? Here's what I recommend. 2 things, all right? 1, if you don't feel ready for your check ride, do not take your check ride. Instead, fly more, all right? What I did was I flew for 30 minutes the day before my check ride. It cost me about $250, but it got the rust off enough so that I could go and hopefully pass the check ride, and I did, okay? That's what I recommend you do, because this way you're spending a little bit more, but you're decreasing the risk of you failing, all right? Because the last thing you want is you pass your oral, which is going to be about 8 hours. You pass your oral, you get to the plane, you're doing good, and then the maneuver that you're bad at comes and you fail it, and you think to yourself, if I would have just flown for 30 minutes or for an hour, perhaps I could have passed. That's not what you want, because now you just cost yourself $2,000, okay? But let's say you go, you know you're not ready for the check ride, and you're like, you know what, I don't want to spend the extra money to do retraining, I just can't afford it, okay? That's very common, that's not an issue. So you're like, you know what, I'm just going to risk it, I'm going to go take this check ride and hopefully I pass. You get past your oral, again you get to the plane, and let's say you fell on, I don't know, VMC demos, okay? To my understanding of the regs, you do not have to do retraining in the airplane. Your instructor can elect to retrain you on ground or in the sim, and that can save you a lot of money. So if you do fail a check ride, any check ride for that matter, ask your instructor to just give you retraining on the ground or in the sim, so that way you're not paying extra money in the aircraft, okay? That's what I would do. So this way, if you guys take your MEI check ride and you fail, hop in the Seminole simulator and get yourself fresh on that. And then if you absolutely have to, just hop in the Seminole for maybe the real plane for maybe 30-45 minutes, do the maneuver, get yourself comfortable, and then come back, okay? Because it's a lot of money. And I feel like that is one way ATP makes a lot of their money, is because they know that odds are you're gonna have a really hard time with this check ride. You're either gonna fail it or you're gonna need more time in the plane, and thus for they charge you a boatload of money for retraining or for extra time, okay? So that's just one of the things to be aware of. But during CFI school, ATP will pay for your apartment. You will need to bring sheets. You will have to buy your own food. You have 2 options. They can airline you out, or you can drive your car there. I elected to drive my car there. They will compensate you for gas. So once you spend the money, you save your receipts, you send it to them, you will get your money back. They're usually pretty good about getting your money back. It takes them about 15 days. It's not that bad. Well, it can be if you're in need of money, and I understand that. There were a couple times I was like, yo, give me my money, dog. But CFI school is going to be the most expensive part of your training, at least when you're away from base. For me, I only had to be away from base, and when I say away from base, I mean away from Gateway, for my MEI initial. Okay, so I went to Vegas for that. And that was expensive because I was eating out all the time, or I had to buy my own groceries. I lived with my mom, so I wasn't used to that. And I was spending a boatload in gas and getting around and doing all this other stuff, so it gets expensive. And then luckily for me, once I finished my MEI, I was able to go back to Gateway to do my CFI and CFII, and that way my expenses went back down to what they were. But for some of you guys that have the smaller locations, I believe that you will get sent out to one of the CFI schools, and you may end up doing all your CFIs at that school, which means that it's going to be way more expensive for you than it was me. So make sure you guys plan your money out accordingly. And that also means that when you apply for your loan, make sure you take these things into account when you figure out how much you need. Unless you already have a lot of money on the side, and I'm talking like 10 grand, at least 10 grand on the side, do not get the bare minimum for your loan. Give yourself about a 10 or 20 grand buffer on your loan. because whatever money you don't use from your flight training after you complete the program, it's just going to get sent back to the bank, okay? Or they'll send you a check, and yes, you're going to have to pay interest on that money, but this way you have it if you need it, and if you don't, it just gets sent back, okay? The last thing you want to do is run out of money during training. That is horrible. I know guys had to go through that, and them trying to find a loan while they were unemployed at ATP with an already like $50,000 or $70,000 loan taken out, it was very hard for them to find money. So one of the things you just want to think about. But what else? I think ATP has the potential to be a phenomenal company to work for. I mean, it could be great if they paid their instructors more. I mean, as an instructor with ATP, they'll call you up sometimes, and I think if you're one of it's like their check airmen, basically. If you're one of them, like, they'll call you up and say, hey, we need you to go to California, or they're standardization instructors. They'll say, hey, I need you to go to California and make sure these guys are doing things right. And you can take one of the ATP Seminoles over to California, and they're going to pay for gas, they're going to pay for hotel, they're going to pay for your rental, they're going to pay you all that. But you're still not getting paid a lot, right? So if ATP paid more, it would be great. ATP does a very, very, very good job of incorporating technology and new things in the industry into their training. So that way, when you get into the real world, you already know what you're doing. I know flight schools that hate technology. And if you're going to a flight school that hates technology and you want to become an airline pilot, you need to get out of that flight school, because I don't know any airlines that still pull out the charts and have these old books and stuff that you use. No. When you get to the airlines, you're going to be given a company-issued iPad, and it's going to have Jepson on it, which is basically the airline version of ForeFlight, and all your documents, weight and balance, all that is going to be done online through your iPad. And ATP does a good job of making you use your iPad and your EFB, electronic flight bag, throughout your training, which is going to get you more than ready for the real world. Alright? But yeah, that's just my thoughts, guys, on ATP, and some things I liked, some things I didn't like, and hopefully that gives you some details and helps you guys kind of get an idea on whether or not you want to go to ATP. I try to keep what I'm saying as unbiased as possible. I don't have any negative opinions on ATP. I actually did an interview with them, well, for them, I guess, on Flight Magazine. Like, they interviewed me and everything. Flight Magazine interviewed me on behalf of ATP, and I loved it. I mean, I thought it was good. For me, ATP was phenomenal. Like, my instructors were good, ATP was good to me. I wouldn't be where I am right now without ATP, so I'm happy. And I think that when you compare ATP to other flight schools like ATP, whose primary goal is to get you through fast, ATP does it the best, because these other flight schools will make you already have your writtens done and have your knowledge done, and all you do is fly with them. With ATP, they give you the stuff to get your writtens done, they give you the books, they give you the equipment. You're paying for it, but they give it to you. Your instructors give you some ground, and you have an online library kind of type of thing filled with videos that you learn from. The other flight schools that are fast track flight schools typically do not give you that, okay? So that's one of the things you need to think about as well. For everybody who is doing fast track programs, ATP has definitely mastered it. Now, if you're looking to take your time, ATP is not the place for you. If you want to go slow at your own pace, ATP is not the place for you, okay? Just so you guys know. Anyways, I have to go and study. I'm studying for my type rating on the ERJ 135. So I gotta dip out, guys. But thank you for watching my videos. Feel free to add me on Instagram if you guys have questions. I will include my Instagram name in the link, in the description below. And you guys can add me. I follow back, and if you need to ask me questions, if you want to say what's up, feel free to. I'm a nice guy, so I've been told, and I'm always happy to have you guys out. And if you guys have any recommendations for new topics on videos and whatnot, please hit me up. Once I'm done with my training, I'll make a little video on part 135 training, I guess, and what I got about it and what it was like and all that good stuff. Anyways, guys, I'll see y'all later. Thanks for watching.